What happens to a community when the people who work there can no longer afford to live there? That question is becoming increasingly important across Northeast Florida as housing prices and rents continue climbing throughout St. Johns County and the surrounding Jacksonville region. And in 2026, West Augustine is becoming part of that larger conversation with the opening of a new affordable apartment community designed to bring much needed, attainable housing into one of the fastest growing areas in the state. While luxury developments and large master plan communities often dominate the headlines, projects like this may ultimately have an even greater impact on the long-term health of the region. Over the past several years, St. Johns County has experienced explosive growth fueled by relocation demand, strong schools, expanding job opportunities, and the appeal of Florida's coastal lifestyle. Thousands of new residents continue moving into the area from across the country, and that demand has pushed both home prices and rents significantly higher. For homeowners, rising values often feel positive because they create equity and strengthen investment potential. But for renters and middle-income households, the story looks very different. Teachers, nurses, hospitality employees, service workers, retirees, and young professionals are increasingly finding it difficult to keep pace with the rising cost of housing. In many cases, the very people who help keep the community functioning every day are being pushed farther away from the places where they work. That's why the new affordable apartment community in West Augustine matters far beyond simply adding more units to the market. It represents an effort to preserve accessibility in a region where affordability pressures are becoming impossible to ignore. Because when housing costs rise too quickly, without enough attainable options, the effects spread across the entire economy. Longer commutes increase traffic congestion. Businesses struggle to hire and retain workers. Families experience greater financial strain. Schools, healthcare systems, restaurants, and retail operations all begin feeling the impact when local workers can no longer afford to live nearby. Affordable housing developments help slow that imbalance by creating opportunities for residents to remain connected to their jobs, schools, and support systems while continuing to participate in the local economy.
What makes this project especially important is timing. In 2026, affordability challenges are being intensified by several factors all at once. Mortgage rates remain elevated compared to previous years. Insurance costs throughout Florida continue climbing. Construction expenses remain high. At the same time, population growth across Northeast Florida has stayed remarkably strong, which continues pushing demand for housing upward. That combination has created a difficult environment, not only for buyers trying to purchase homes, but also for developers attempting to build housing at lower price points. In many cases, affordable housing projects now require partnerships between nonprofits, developers, housing agencies, and local governments because the economics are significantly more difficult than traditional market rate development. But despite those obstacles, projects continue moving forward because the need has become too urgent to ignore. West Augustine itself is also a meaningful location for this type of investment. The area holds deep historical significance while sitting near some of the fastest growing corridors in St. Johns County. As development spreads outward and property values continue rising throughout the region, preserving opportunities for longtime residents and working families to remain within the community becomes increasingly important. Affordable housing is not simply about lower rent. It's about long-term stability. Stable housing helps children remain in the same schools. It reduces displacement. It allows residents to stay connected to family, work, and community networks. And modern affordable housing developments are evolving significantly compared to older perceptions people may still hold. Today's projects increasingly focus on quality design, updated amenities, community spaces, and long-term livability. The goal is not simply to build inexpensive units as quickly as possible, but to create safe, stable, and sustainable environments where residents can thrive. That shift matters because affordable housing has historically carried unfair stigma in some communities, despite the critical role it plays in supporting balanced economic growth. Well-designed, affordable housing strengthens communities, supports local businesses, and helps preserve a healthier mix of residents across different income levels.
From a broader real estate perspective, the opening of this new apartment community also reflects how conversations around growth in Northeast Florida are evolving. For years, much of the focus centered almost entirely around luxury housing, rising home values, relocation demand, and large-scale development momentum. Those trends are still very much happening, but increasingly, local leaders, housing organizations, and developers are recognizing that successful growth requires balance. A region cannot rely solely on luxury housing and high-end development if it wants to remain sustainable long-term. It also needs workforce housing, attainable rentals, starter homes, and housing options for residents across multiple income levels. Communities function best when teachers, healthcare workers, service employees, retirees, and young professionals can continue living and working within the same areas they help support every day. That's why projects like this affordable apartment community in West Augustine may become increasingly important over the next decade as Northeast Florida continues expanding. Population growth alone does not automatically create healthy growth. Sustainable growth requires infrastructure, transportation, schools, healthcare systems, and a housing supply capable of serving a diverse population. The opening of this community is one step toward addressing that larger challenge before affordability pressures intensify even further. For families searching for stable housing, it creates opportunity. For workers trying to remain close to their jobs, it provides accessibility. And for the broader community, it represents an investment in maintaining balance during a period of rapid change. Because ultimately, growth only works long-term if the people who keep the community running can still afford to be part of it. And in 2026, West Augustine is taking an important step in that direction. I'm Luke Christmas, and it's always Christmas when you work with Christmas Homes.